Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS, authentic, real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is our Friday freeform, wherever the heck we want to talk about, special Friday podcast. And we do want to give you guys a little disclaimer. This is not our normal podcast. So if you happen to be listening to Julie and I for the first time today, or watching us on YouTube, and you're expecting a lot of highbrow real estate coaching and training, today is probably not a good start date for us. Go back and listen to
that day.
This is not that day. So we've decided to do at the start of this year is start giving ourselves a little bit more brevity on Fridays to talk about whatever we are interested in. And a lot of you guys have reacted really favorably. Actually, I think we're getting more positive feedback from some of the things we talk about on Fridays than we normally do, which is fun. I love it. And so it's a lot less stress for us too, to be honest with you, because we don't have to come up with these big fancy outlines for all of you. Speaking of outlines, of course, I'm going to talk about the newsletter. Make sure you're subscribing to our newsletter, harrisrealestatedaily.com. It is the place where all of our past podcasts, all of our past podcast notes live. I don't know of any other podcasters that actually go to the work and go to the effort of creating real, essentially formalized podcast outlines. We do that for you guys on every show, so you can download the notes, so you can essentially, have the information as we've presented it, because we'll go over a lot of information, a lot of detail, and some of you are going to want that for your own education, but maybe you're educating a team or a brokerage. Maybe you're, doing a little bit of social media, whatever it is, it's there for you. You just have to go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. All right, Julie Harris. So I want to start out by saying Julie and I had birthdays this past week. So Julie, happy birthday to you.
And happy birthday to you. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. And so, Julie, people have been, a lot of you guys have been with us for decades, know how old we are, but the joke is that we have a combined age now of 109. So
yes, the math to them.
That's all we'll talk about with that, as far as that goes. But yes, we had very nice birthdays, and there's hundreds of you that have wished us happy birthdays, and we sincerely appreciate it. So Julie, you and I were talking about a lot of different things in the last few days that we thought, well, let's save that for the Friday show.
Sure.
What's top of mind that you'd like to drill down on first?
Well, I've been thinking about, you and I started watching Netflix Drive to Survive again.
Yep.
Which, as somebody who is interested in Formula One, adjacent to somebody who's very, very enthusiastic, about Formula One, I have to say it's a very interesting show from many different standpoints. And that's what got us thinking. And you asked me the topic that's on the top of my mind. One of the things that's cool about that show is you can study lots of things about Formula One, but individual drivers' techniques and personalities and tendencies and how they handle stress. And, I always like watching that and observing that about the Olympics, but because this is show after show, you kind of get to know people way more in depth than something like just the Olympics that kind of comes and goes. And one of the things we were talking about is somebody who is naturally, in racing, you would say more of a killer or more aggressive, or, Max Verstappen, I think, would be our example here. And versus somebody who's maybe a little bit more analytical, meticulous, kind of like a more naturally amiable person. And yet they're in the same sport. And how do they each handle trying to win? And so how does that translate to life in general with different person? I've been thinking about, how to attack that question. Does the person who's naturally more aggressive have a big advantage? Probably, depending. And you brought up the point, it depends on the sport. Maybe that person, not so much in a team sport, but on something like Formula One, where there's one winner and, everybody else. So what are your thoughts on that? I could go many different directions. We could certainly apply it to real estate if we wanted to, but back to you.
Well, I know you didn't, I told you my summary, and I'll share with the listeners because it is kind of interesting. And a lot of it has to do with, life experience, but life experience primarily with coaching agents and coaching agents at a very high level. I mean, you and I have done it since forever, and we've had literally over 100,000 individual coaching calls ourselves. And if you go back and you start thinking about from all your past coaching clients, which ones were the real Max Verstappens, which ones were the killers, which ones were winning in any race condition, even when their equipment wasn't the greatest, who, tell me who those people were. And those were the one percenters, even probably even less than that. But let me just start out by telling a story. I think it's the third to last Drives to Survive uh, this season that just came out on March 9th, I think it was. In any event, it was Brazil. And if you guys are Formula One, if you're not Formula One fans, if you start watching that Netflix series, you'll become a Formula One fan. They just, especially this last season. Oh my gosh, they've done such a good job of capturing. Not really, it's not made for people like me primarily because I am an absolute Formula One nerd. Julie and we know some of the Formula One drivers. I mean, our connection with Formula One and the sport goes beyond just watching it. We've been to races all over the world. I've got a race simulator that's made by Lando Norris's brother, Oliver. He, flew here from England and put this
Tell them who
simulation.
Lando Norris is.
Well, I mean, Lando Norris is essentially the person I'm about to talk about. So,
Okay.
Lando Norris is the number one driver for McLaren, and Oliver is his brother. And so Oliver used to be a racer himself, and Oliver makes the simulators for most of the top, I would say the top maybe 7 Formula One drivers. So we'll bounce back to simulators, but let me just put it this way. So Max Verstappen, who's now going to probably be one of the most successful Formula One drivers of all time, is so addicted to sim racing on the exact same sim that I'm on. And I'm not saying, I mean, I can watch him race. I can watch the telemetry. I can watch him race from his perspective behind the wheel in a sim. I can watch the whole race, the whole thing. And I'm trying to learn how to be a better sim racer, and watching him do what he does, as soon as you start picking up on some of the little intricacies of what makes one person really amazing and one person not really amazing, then you've experienced that in life. A lot of you have. But unfortunately, what happens is a lot of times when we come across somebody that's truly special, we don't acknowledge it, we discount it, or we'll essentially attribute their success or their outsized success to an unfair advantage or cheating or stealing or just bullshit, basically. A lot of humans don't want to accept the fact that there's somebody better than them, and just using real words here. And yes, I mean better. Max Verstappen is a better driver than essentially anybody else on the grid, obviously. And so and sometimes what you'll hear is, oh, he's got a better car. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. I'm going to start by telling you guys a story. So, and like I said, the story is, you guys can watch this, the third to last Drive to Survive on the Netflix series. It was Brazil, 2024, and it was just pissing down rain. It was torrential. And Formula One, unlike most other sports, they will race in the rain. They'll race in the extreme heat. They'll race to the point where you can barely even see the car that's in front of you. They have rain lights that are on, the flashing bright LED lights. If you ever watched and wonder what those are all about, first of all, when you're going into a corner and those lights start to flash, those aren't brake lights. Those are actually energy recovery. What they're doing is that's essentially a light that's there to essentially, I think it's just frankly for fans to watch the bright shining light normally when it's not raining. And anyway, that is showing that the battery is being recharged in non-rain conditions. But in rain conditions, the light flashes constantly. So you can see where the car is ahead of you because the rain is coming down so fast, so hard. And you have to remember, these Formula One cars, every car is designed aerodynamically. When you have something that's designed aerodynamically, to really make it simple, what happens is it's doing its best to break through. The air is resisting the car, and the car is designed to essentially channel the air in such a way that it's going to cause the car to go through the air quicker, but also cause the car to be pushed down on the track harder, operate in a certain way when it's going around corners, the whole thing. But in rain, what it does is if you're behind somebody in a Formula One car, any race car, any car, you guys have experienced this on the freeways before where you can't really see what's going on ahead of you. But if you're behind a full-on race car and I've raced personally, I've been on the track at Mid-Ohio in a open wheel race car in the rain. And trust me when I tell you, it's freaking terrifying. It just is. You have to drive on instinct. You are going 100 miles, 100 in these little cars I used to race. They're these
Crazy.
open wheel. Yeah. Anyway, so you can't see the car ahead of you. You can't really see the car behind you. And you can maybe see, let's say, 2 or 3 car lengths, maybe 4 car lengths. And so what you have to do is you have to visualize what's going to happen next, where you're supposed to brake. And also in racing in the rain, there's something called the rain line. So normally when you're racing, you're going to go down a certain way. You're going to take an apex. You're going to, the whole thing. And frankly, you can follow the tracks on the road. You can follow the rubber marks on the road. But in the rain, if you are on the normal dry race line, which is what it's called, because the water's hitting that road where obviously where the dry race line was, where it has all the tire marks, so making it, hopefully I'm expressing this, Julie, you're the advanced amateur. So if I'm not expressing this correctly, just, stop me. But the moral of the story is in the rain, if you're racing on the normal dry line, you're basically on ice. You're like trying to steer and drive and turn on ice, because the rubber with the water on top of it makes it so your car has absolutely no interest in staying on the track. No traction whatsoever.
Yeah, and you don't have windshield wipers, and there's no doing what I would do, which is just simply pull over and wait.
Well, but don't step on my story. Yeah. All right, so this Brazil race is going on, and Max Verstappen starts this race in, I think it was 17th, if I remember correctly, 17th or 18th. And there's 20 cars on the grid. So he's way at the back. Now, maybe he had an engine issue. Who knows why he started so far in the back, but he did. So you add to this absolutely horrible weather conditions, as I've just expressed, and all the things. And he's got to get past all these other cars and a lot of the so in life in general, you have the best, which usually amounts to 1, 2, or 3 different competitors. Then you have the best of the rest, and then you have the back of the pack. And that's the way it works in every business. That's the way it works in your real estate market. So in your real estate market, it's dominated every market. Let's just say you focus on an area of 1,000 homes or whatever. There's going to be, or 2,000 or 20,000, adjust accordingly. There are going to be 3 dominant real estate agents. And there's also, generally speaking, going to be 3 dominant real estate brokers, but 3 dominant real estate agents. So those are the best. Now, here's what you find statistically. Number 1 will sell the same amount of homes per year that number 2 and 3 do combined. Okay. Mm-hmm. And number 2 and 3 will sell the total amount of homes that the next group of agents down sells per year. And then the bottom will basically just struggle to even be in existence. So number 1 in life in general, in any business, and you guys can think about this, number 1 is generally so beyond number 2 and 3 that it's, because why? Because they have that 1% thing that we're going to talk about in a second. Back to the track. So we're seeing that Max is starting at the back. He's got to get past all of these slower cars, and he's got to win the race. And how the hell is going to happen? Now we add the rain. All right, so the race is going on, and they're showing they're showing the everything you can, from the inside of the driver's perspective. And I'm telling you, so they showed inside Lando's helmet, basically, because there's a camera right here, the visor, and there's a camera. Not all the drivers do this, but Lando did. So camera, and showed his visor, showed what he was seeing. Not only was there an enormous amount of rain that was completely making the helmet so you couldn't even see through it, the water, because remember the aerodynamics and the speed, these guys are still going like 150, 200 miles per hour. It was causing water not to come underside, but to build up on the bottom of the visor, so that essentially he was not only having this completely be, imagine torrential rain and your windshield wipers can't keep up. There are no windshield wipers on a visor. And because he was going so fast, the water couldn't run off the visor fast enough. Okay. So what I'm saying is the worst conditions. And he starts basically, talking to the pit crew. Well, it was his engineer. And he was saying, I can't see shit. And he was he was racing. He was in the front. He was, now he was on intermediate tires. And he needed to be on rain tires. But he was absolutely mortified. And he literally said, I think if I stay out here, I'm going to die. It's things to that effect. And you could hear in his voice, he was in panic mode. And he's a great driver, and we're friends with his brother and the whole thing. And, we're huge Lando fans. So, when we were in Monaco last year, a quick Lando story, if you guys are car nerds, you'll appreciate this, but there's this tiny little car called a Fiat Jolly, which is this open top little Fiat thing. If you want to just get just a laugh, you can Google Fiat Jolly and you'll see a picture of this thing. It's basically the size of a go-kart or golf cart. And then he he sold it, but when we were there, it was parked in front of the
Casino.
the casino next to all
Mhm.
these Bugattis and Ferraris and whatever. And it was this little baby blue freaking Fiat Jolly
They're
with
very
this white.
cute.
Okay, but
Mhm.
what I'm saying is these are not the behaviors of an alpha male, Julie. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm sorry.
I get your point. You're landing the plane here, or
Okay.
driving the car, if you will.
So Lando's in the car, and I'm trying to say from a perspective of a novice at best racer, I can tell you that I would be scared shitless too, for
I know.
sure.
How are they not even? It sounds like he was basically blinded in the rain going over 100 miles an hour. Yeah, you can kind of feel for him.
Okay, now, uh, but he was in the front, Julie.
I
So,
get it.
so he didn't have a car in front of him that was essentially, giving him a tsunami that he had to drive through. Max did. So
Yeah.
Max was in the back. Max had to pass all these other cars. He had to not only, so remember the racing line's hell, right? You want to stay off the dry racing line.
Yep.
He had to run his car off the racing line, which is not the optimal line to do any passing on. So like if you guys can just visualize it, when you're just driving, even if you're not a car nerd, you'll appreciate this. When you're going around a corner, you naturally your car, the physics of the car, the weight of the car naturally wants to go around a corner a certain way. When you're going around a corner, and if you're not on, watching the video, it's hard to explain. But when you're going around a corner and the corner's like this, the peak of the corner is called the apex. So when you're in a racing car, you go like this and you brake, and you try to brake as late as you can into the turn because that gives you more momentum. You're carrying as much speed as you possibly can without essentially causing yourself to fly off the track. Because remember, the car naturally wants to go straight. The aerodynamics help it, the tires help it, the driver helps it, but the car doesn't want to go in a corner. The car wants to go straight. So in one of the best places to pass, and all great drivers know this, is late braking. So what you're doing when you're late braking is you're actually braking literally late as close to the apex as possible so that you can pass other cars that have started braking sooner because their speed going to the apex is slower. So you're not supposed to pass them in the turn, but you can pass them coming out of the turn. Okay, that's what all great drivers do, and all of them do it. It's not that hard to conceptualize what I just described to you. You can maybe even see yourself doing it and maybe have done it on a dry line. But on a wet line, the wet line is outside of the normal dry line. And outside of the normal dry line is where all the pieces of rubber and the debris from the race actually hang out.
Mhm.
You never, in a race, you never want to go off the dry line because you can puncture tires. You can pick up little pieces of shards of this and the other.
Where all the junk is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in the rain, you've got all the junk, you've got no traction, and you still got to get past all these people and you can't see. So what I'm saying is Max's driving conditions weren't just twice as bad as what Lando was experiencing, or 1,000 times worse,
Mhm.
right? Lando
And he had a lot of traffic in front of him too.
Exactly. So Lando decides he's I think I'm gonna die, I believe is what he said. He comes into the pits, they put on rain tires. And while he was in the pits, put on rain tires, Max was maybe 2 or 3 cars at this point because he'd done all this passing. He went from 17th to like third or fourth, I think it was. So Lando goes in, and maybe even was sixth. Lando comes in and changes out his tires, and by the time he comes back out, Verstappen had taken the lead of the race, and he ended up winning the race. So, and it turns out when Verstappen won the race, not only did he put up with all those horrible driving conditions, but he also, at the end of the season, at the end of that race, we learned his tires were worn out. And at the end of the season, he admitted that that car he was driving, the car he'd been driving the whole entire year, was not essentially the best. Basically, he was fighting it. The car had too much oversteer, too much understeer.
Mhm.
Engineering wise, it wasn't optimal. In other words, he wasn't driving arguably the best car on the track. Lando was. And how do we know that? Because when you are watching these guys do their qualifying laps, and that qualifying is generally speaking when you're not doing any real racing, you're just trying to drive as fast as you can. And we can track their in-car telemetry. We could actually see that the McLaren driven by Lando was faster in many of the places around the track for the whole season than the Red Bull was driven by Max Verstappen. You guys following me? So, and I wrote this down. Lando had superior equipment, but an inferior level of confidence, and he lacked that little je ne sais quoi, the 1%, whatever you want to call it, that
Mhm.
Max had. And Max had inferior equipment, vastly inferior conditions, but there was something different inside of his head. And this guy's already won, after last year, he won 4 world championships. So, I mean, he's obviously had this for a long time. It wasn't just that one race. And he was able to push past, or maybe didn't even experience all that fear, despite whatever the weather conditions were, despite the fact he was on inferior tires and arguably an inferior car, and he still wins the race. And he did that consistently for the entire year. And at the beginning of the year, I remember people were saying, well, Max isn't going to win another world championship. And sure enough, he did. He kept his head down. He did what he didn't want to do, and he didn't want to do it at the highest level. And so that's an example. And Julie and I were talking about that. And so Julie, and she and I were in an agreement. And I'll tell you my conclusion, and Julie, you can argue yours, okay?
Sure.
So my conclusion is Lando does not have whatever Max has. And my conclusion is that, and I'm pretty steadfast in this, that in life in general, there are people that have something that you cannot learn and you cannot emulate. It's just some God-given, whatever the hell it is. It could come from hardship. It could come from a lot of practice. But I think even if you take somebody like, and I'm sorry to use Lando as my example here, even if you take a Lando and you put him in the same equipment, or in this case, superior equipment to Max, Max is going to win every time. Julie called it the killer instinct. I don't know how to really quantify other than that, but there's definitely a tiny percent of the population that's going to have something special. And you can, like Julie and I, when we lived in Georgetown, Texas, we got to know a lot of ex-special forces guys. Some of them were our neighbors, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Green Berets, those guys. They never announced it, but once you became friends with them, you went to their house, you'd see their stuff, so you kind of figure it out. Anyway, I remember Julie and I on our podcast, this is maybe 2 years ago, had 2 Navy SEALs, and both of them were in SEAL Team 6. And I was talking to one of them, both of them ended up being trainers, Bud's trainers. And what was his name? Robin. And do you remember the other guy's name?
I want to say Jay, but I'm not sure that's right.
It wasn't Jay, but it was some really good Navy SEAL name. That's what it was. Anyway, so I remember on the podcast, I asked them, I said, so when you are seeing somebody who, like a 20-year-old guy who, physically he's hacking it, he should be able to hack it and whatever, but he's struggling with his mindset. There's some issue. And I asked them straight up, I said, what do you do? Do you try to run them off because you see that they're mentally weak, or do you try to reinforce them to give them a that a boy, or in however you do it in Navy SEAL Buds training? And one of them said, if I sense any weakness whatsoever, I'll do it. If I see they're weak, if they're not carrying their weight literally, or emotionally, I'll do everything in my power to run them off. And that is the whole damn point of Buds, because we do not want anybody that's showing any kind of weakness, even getting an opportunity to pass into Navy SEAL, to become a Navy SEAL, let alone a Navy SEAL Team 6 person. And the other one said, well, if I see somebody needs a little pick me up, I'll maybe give them a little bit of encouragement. And I thought that was really fascinating. So those are my prevailing thoughts, that I don't think ultimately you can train somebody up to be good, maybe even occasionally be great, but I don't think greatness is innate in anybody. That's my theory. Oh, no. Let me say that again. I think greatness is innate and very true. The very, very upper levels of greatness is innate in very, very few people. And most people can train up to be the bottom. Like, remember I was saying there's the best and then there's the best of the rest. And I said that the number one player has a dominant, Max Verstappen. And, there's all kinds of other examples of this. There's that. And then there's these other two. So these other two have probably worked their asses off, and they've practiced and they've trained and they've done other things, but they will never be number one, because number one in most things in life is got this exceptional thing that you can copy, you can emulate, you can try to replicate, but you cannot ever be what they are. And I've experienced this in life. I have seen it with coaching clients, and you and I are in disagreement about that.
I'm not in complete disagreement. I think that there is a tiny, tiny, tiny microscopic percentage of people who are just that way. But I think that there are many, many factors. For example, Max's exposure to, his upbringing. Like, what if he didn't pursue Formula One? What would he be doing? Would he be the best accountant out there? Would he be, in some other sport, who would he be? Would he just be the best at anything? Or is he programmed to be really, really the best at Formula One? That would be one question. Okay. It's like exposure, it's upbringing, it's, so that's one thing. Another factor,
Julie,
go ahead.
Julie, you talk about this occasionally. I always get these words wrong.
Epigenetics, right?
And what was the other word? There's another.
And regular genetics.
Okay, so
there's genetics, like that's your DNA, and you have your tendencies towards this and that, whether that's a health thing or it's something else. And then you have epigenetics, which is you can, by your lifestyle and your choices and your habits, turn your genes, your tendencies on or off. Okay, so the example would be, everybody in my family is 200 pounds or more, and my tendency genetically is to carry weight. That's who my people are, right?
Okay, so let me say this. Julie, you may have just insulted people who dream of one day being 200 pounds.
Okay, well, let's say 500 pounds.
Well, but Julie's like normally like 110, 112.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot to me.
Yeah, but Julie, just to really make this point, like you and I were consciously aware of all this, 20 years ago.
Sure.
And we knew that our genetics had sort of predetermined us to follow a certain path.
Yeah.
That if we didn't take countermeasures, we would have followed those certain paths. And so I'm just kind of helping.
And we wouldn't have called it epigenetics back then, but I've since read up on some of this. And so the point is that all of that may be true. And many people would say, well, that's just how my people are. We just tend towards that, whether that's weight or whether that's something else, right? Like everybody in my family just loves to smoke or loves to drink or whatever. That's like, oh, that's programmed into me. So that's just how it's going to be. That's how most people are. And yet, by changing your lifestyle and your habits, you can turn something like that off or turn something like that on. So, for example, I often wonder about this after we've done our 23andMe. Okay. I have some weirdo elite athlete genes. Okay. Had I known that as a kid, maybe I would have taken advantage of that and become great at track or ballet or something. Had I thought, oh, well, maybe I have just that little, what you were talking about that Max has. Maybe I've just got a little bit of advantage of that. And maybe I'll run with that. So I think it's a combination of having it, but most importantly, doing something with it.
Well, it's environment. That's what you
It's environment and exposure and support and things like that. Now, in addition to that, my question would be, okay, so let's agree that Max clearly has, and anybody that watches that series will notice that he's got that extra something. Okay, so would he be winning as much as he is if it weren't for his, as you said, addiction to the simulator and all of that practice and all of that experience? And is the Max that we're seeing in this season, after winning 4 or 5 previous seasons, 4 previous seasons, that's a lot more experience too. So like, how much of the Max that you see now that we perceive and probably is the killer is because he's got all of this experience and confidence. I'll point out to have these guys notice some things when they watch it and make it more interesting. Lando has won some races and not world championships, but he does have the ability to win. And you would argue it, he took advantage in some cases of some safeties and things like that helped him win those races. Okay. But he still had the wherewithal to take advantage of it and to run with it. And to hear him after some of those races, you can see instantly his confidence has been raised. Every time you win, your confidence goes up. And so how much of Max, as we see him now, is because he's got more of a buildup of confidence from having won.
Okay, so in one of the Drive to Survives, I've never seen this before. It was awesome. You were noticing that those guys were hanging out afterwards, and they were playing. I forget what that. It's not pickleball, but whatever the pickleball adjacent thing is.
Yeah.
And Max kicked Lando and like 2 other Formula One drivers' asses in this game. Yeah. And Lando was like, "Yeah, well, of course he won."
I know. I'm with you. Yeah.
Well, and those guys have been racing competitively against each other go-kart wise since they were kids, since they were like younger than Zoe, Julie, since they're like 7 and 8.
I know.
So these guys have always they have grown up knowing that Max was some sort of anomaly. They knew he was something different. They all spoke of him even when his first season in Formula One, as the Brits would say, he had spots. He had acne, right? I mean,
Sure.
he was just a kid. He was the youngest new Formula. He was like, I think 17
Are
when
you
he
talking
entered
about Max?
Max. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And anyway, the moral of the story is that you're not convincing me that there isn't, or it seems like you've changed your attitude about, or your tune about this, that you're now in agreement that there is something special, but you're saying it's only really, I heard you say it's only really comes out in people if they're put in the right environment. So had Max been born in,
Yes.
Nepal, India, to poverty, he never would
And
have
had
ate.
his same genetic makeup and his same brain and all of those things, maybe he would have had a different outcome. I think that there's multiple things. I think I think most people have something. I guess I would say I would like to believe that everybody has that within them that can be turned on or turned off given the right circumstances, the right discipline, the right encouragement. But I would also agree with you that some people have it more than others. And maybe that has a lot of other things like the ability to tap into it and to be more introspective and to be like, when I watch some of these drivers, we're using Max as the example because he's usually leading, right? You said it, like, does the fear and anxiety, say driving in the rain, for example, does that not even affect him? Does he not even feel it? That's, to me, I think that's something else.
Well,
I see it with people that are a little bit more like Zoe, for example, is more fearless than I am. And people, I've heard other people say, well, you develop your sense of, life preservation as you get older. Like, why wouldn't she be fearless? She's a kid, I don't have as much, like, I wouldn't climb half the stuff that she does because I see concussions in the future.
Well,
But
Julie,
you know what I'm saying? I think there's more to it. I agree with you, but I think there's more to it.
it's the stages of learning, right? The stages of
For
mastery.
sure.
And so remind everyone what those are.
Yeah. Okay. So, and bear with me because they always sound like exactly the same terms. You just have to pay attention. So first you have unconscious incompetence. That's where you don't know what you don't know. Okay. Then you figure out, aha, there's stuff I need to learn so I can get better at whatever I'm working on. That's conscious incompetence. I've become conscious of my own incompetence. Now I know I need to learn some stuff and study some things, maybe get on the simulator if I'm a race car driver, et cetera. Okay. Then you work on it and you work on it and you work on it and you practice and you get better. You become consciously competent. Now I'm still working on it, but I'm getting some competence. I know how to get around the track now. Maybe I don't always finish in the top 5, but I am at least not wrecking anymore. I'm working on my conscious competence. Then you become like Max, who clearly has unconscious competence, where it seems like he just knows what the hell he's doing. He just he'll just burn through the rain and he will tear up the traffic. And he's not crying in his mic. There's no crying in Formula One. He's not, are those tears or is that rain? No, this is not occurring to him. He's just going to win. And most importantly, he knows exactly how he's going to win, or at least he appears to know exactly how he's going to do it.
But level off what you're saying right now, okay? Because this is the essence of what the 1%, it's even smaller than that.
Yeah.
It's the competition thing.
Yes,
The
I think that's right.
That's the essence of what makes somebody truly spectacular at anything in life. And I'm going to go back to something you just said. You think, and I agree with you to an extent. You said that basically we're talking about an environment. I think if someone truly has, like, why is Elon Musk Elon Musk? He wasn't, born on third base, right?
Yeah.
He was definitely not even barely in the dugout based on the biographies and whatnot have been written about him. But if you took Elon Musk and he was having his ass kicked all the time and he had a very, very dysfunctional upbringing, the whole thing, and now he's the world's richest man and he started all these different companies and it's insane how people are politicizing him. The guy is without a doubt one of the most influential people in modern history. And he's Julie and I's age. So
he's not just the richest man, but also probably the smartest man.
I doubt if he's the smartest, to be honest with you. I think because listen, you don't have to be. So he's not he's definitely a genius, but he's got that little 1% thing.
Yes.
So you don't have to be super smart or super beautiful or super strong or have the elite athlete gene, which Julie does have, to be. If you got that 1%, it's going to override all those other deficiencies, and I'll prove it to you. Back to Max. Max was racing. Max was racing. in the worst conditions ever, and in an inferior car, and everything was going against him, and he still won.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you take somebody that's in Nepal, India, or wherever, and they have that special 1% thing, whatever word there is for that, their own version, they're going to figure out a way to go to wherever the environment has to be so that they can exercise that thing that's inside of them that has to manifest. And a normal person doesn't have that. That's
So it's the I'll figure it out, and the not giving up and perseverance and the lack of doubt. We often on the podcast, in the real estate podcast, we talk about, one of the traits that we see in top producing agents is that they don't have the thought that I guess I'm just not going to finish. I'm just going to pull over. This sucks for me. They're like, no, I'm going to win. That's it. And it is, people would call that mindset, right? But I think that maybe that 1% has that, where it just doesn't, I'm just going to figure this out. You give the same problem to Elon as you give to somebody else. And this has come out in his biographies that we've listened to, where maybe for a decade, there's a company where there's been this problem, and they've always said, well, that can't be done. That can't be done. We don't have the solution for that, or we can't pay for that, or there's not a contract for that. And Elon's like, okay, give me the facts of this, and let's take that apart and put it back together and figure this out. And he figures it out, and he does it. He's doing it now. He's doing it for less.
So
and he's doing it more efficiently.
Max was in 17th. All the freaking environment, no reason to believe he'd win, and he just figured it out. That's what I'm trying to do. And so I don't think to say that someone was not born in the right environment or was not born with all the gifts. I don't think that is going to overarchingly. I don't think that's going to be the thing that's going to. Those little idiosyncrasies or headwinds that people have or born with or born into, if they've got that one little that spark is going to be more powerful than whatever their. Now obviously there's limitations. If you want to be an NBA basketball player and you're my height, good luck with that. I mean, there's certain things. So you have to have your talents, your natural talents, and your natural physical ability has to be in alignment with whatever that drive thing is pushing you towards. But you could, for example, you said let's just say it's 1,000 years in the future and there's no need for an Elon Musk developing the technologies. He would still be an exceptional person in creating something else and figuring out another way, because that thing that's inside of him, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away with money. It doesn't go away with, it just doesn't go away. It's always part of him. It's part of it's his genetic code. It's not because he was beaten on as a kid. I wasn't trying to infer that a second ago. It wasn't because any of these things. It's just something that some people are born with. Excuse me.
You're saying it's just who he is.
It's just who he is. And I think for us as humans not to recognize that there is something a little extra that God gives some people, for us not to acknowledge that those people are special and exceptional is arrogance. And when we come across people that are like that, we need to acknowledge them and we need to reinforce them, because history is made think of all the most significant people in history. And all of those people have had what I'm describing, otherwise they wouldn't be considered one of the most significant people in history. But what do the masses try to do when they come across people like that? They try to tear them down. That happens in Formula One. Max gets booed. What the hell are you booing Max Verstappen for, you jackasses? And then, all this other crap. So when somebody really exceptional comes around, shows up, it's not that often, once in a generation, every 25 years or something. Think about that, listeners, viewers. Once in every 25 years, somebody really exceptional shows up. Man, woman, doesn't matter. And and what does society try to do? Tear them down. What does society try to do? Belittle them. Try to insinuate that they're cheating or had some sort of inside path or whatever. All these things. And that's wrong. And that's our arrogance. It's our arrogance. It's our hubris. It's our stupidity. So as a Formula One fan, and I see somebody like Max, I see the exceptionalism in him. I saw it in Michael Schumacher. I saw it in Fernando Alonso. I mean, my God, if you guys aren't Formula One fans after listening to this podcast, you're missing something. But there was a race that I don't remember. Maybe it was may have been 10 years ago now, where Fernando got into this accident in his car, a Formula One car, which is not very big.
Yeah.
rolled over and over and over and over and over. And the car was exploding all the time. It was rolling, parts going everywhere, flames, the whole thing. And the car rolls, and finally hits the wall. And the only thing that's left is what looks like this tiny little tube. And that's the fuselage where he was upside down. You know what he does? You see him, you see this. I remember people are like, well, that dude's dead. Yeah.
I remember that wreck. It was horrible.
Yeah. And because you got to think about it, the G forces of all those turns would have snapped your neck and caused you a concussion. Your brain's not supposed to be moving around your head, all these things. Boom, 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 boom. Horrible. Mm-hmm. He's upside down. You see this arm come out. You see him push the car up enough. He crawls back out. He basically walks away, and then he races the same day in another car. Yeah. That is not,
okay. That is so that's abnormal. Yeah.
That is abnormal.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm going to tell my go-kart story.
Okay.
So I'm racing go-karts. And if you guys don't know about what racing go-karts are, they're real race cars. They're go-karts, but they're real race cars. Julie used to be I call her my track babe, but she would go to the track with me and
pit crew and sandwich maker.
Exactly. So we'd go, and there were a couple of cool tracks where we were in Central Ohio. This is when we were early 20s, before we were in real estate. And so we'd show up, and I had this really just awesome car. There was this Italian car that had the local, the guy's name was Pearl Gamble. You remember Pearl, Julie?
I remember Pearl. Yep.
And he used to set the carts up for you, and just, all the suspension, everything was all right. Perfect. All right. So, I'm out there, I'm learning how to race the best. And I was so without getting into too much detail, there was a race that happened right before one of my final races. The highest I ever finished in any race was like 7th. And I was very proud of myself. And there's sometimes 20, 25 cars on the track.
Yeah. It's pretty serious.
I was in my early 20s, and I was probably on the older side of drivers that were out there. And most of the drivers out there were kids. They were like single digit, like 12, 11. Some of them were 9. The 9-year-olds weren't on the track with us, but you'd see a lot of teenagers. And, they had nothing to do on Monday. They didn't have job that they had to make sure that they weren't concussed over during the weekend.
Fearless little boogers. Yeah.
They were fearless, not just fearless. It was something else. Mm-hmm. So I'm on the track. I'm doing my racing. I come back in, and boom. And then the heat that happens after that, the race that happens after that, is a group that I'm going to be competing with. This kid, he rolls his cart, not like what I just described with Fernando, but he rolls his cart. I'm not making this up. This happened. It's horrible, but what I'm about to describe is he rips his race suit open. Something somehow rips his scrotum open. Okay. That's where the family vegetables are stored, in case you guys aren't. Okay.
No bueno.
No bueno. He sees his family vegetables. They're not where they're supposed to be. Not making this up. Ambulance comes. They take him to the hospital. They put everything back where it's supposed to go.
Sew him back up.
Stitches, situation back up. The dude shows up the same freaking day and races. I want you to think about what I just said. And I told Julie when that happened, and I think I was 22 or something. I said, yeah. Julie, if that is who I'm going to be competing against, yeah. I know I'm never going to win. And so I don't even want to try. And it was within 90 days. I sold all my
that was the end of that. Yeah. Well, there's different levels to everything.
Exactly. Well, so I thought to myself, well, you know what, Julie, maybe we should just decide to, do something where we know we can, when giving our natural talents and abilities. Real estate. That was part and parcel of the conversation.
Generally less dangerous.
Yeah. But so, there's an example. So yes, Julie, what are you thinking? Is this are you still, it seems like we're on the same vibe now with this.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also caution our listeners, our viewers, that because it's such a tiny micro percent, to caution them not to just throw in the towel. Well, I don't have that, so I'm not going to go after it. Instead of tearing people down, and you're right, that society at large has a tendency to boo the Max Verstappens and to go after Elon Musk. He must be a bad guy, whatever. Instead of looking at people like that, is how can you learn from that? How can you absorb some of that tendency from them, and maybe be the best of the rest? Maybe, that's pretty great too. There's like you said, one is usually way up here, and then 2 and 3. You can still have many, many things that you want in life by working towards that. And you might surprise yourself what you can do. I'll give you the case in point of coaching clients who struggle and struggle, and they're like, I barely understand where leads come from, and it seems like this whole real estate thing, I just have to luck into business. And then they decide that they're going to go from unconscious incompetence to conscious competence and work on their skills. I'm going to get a pre-listing package. I'm going to learn how to present. I'm going to actually ask for business and start closing. And I've never been comfortable with that. I'm going to take that risk that I could hear no, maybe more often than I hear yes, but I'm going to stop being weird about that. And then the ones that persevere and aren't weird about it and aren't 1 foot in and 1 foot out and trying it, okay? The ones that are like, this is going to work for me. I'm going to make this my career. And they have a win or 2 wins. And they conquer that for sale by owner. They convert that open house lead to not just a buyer lead, but a listing lead. To see them cross over that bridge to conscious competence, where now I'm building some confidence too. And now I have that little something. I got that little taste for it. Now I can do it. I've had, and you've had, our coaches have had many coaching clients that have done that. Some of them, it takes longer than others, but the ones where they have that initial victory, and I tell them all the time, you just need to have one really great victory, and then you're going to get addicted to it, and you're going to love it, and you're going to build your confidence, and you're going to want to become more skilled and more aggressive, and then their lives change.
Well, so you're talking about motivation now. That's really what you're circling around.
Motivation and perseverance and confidence and disciplined on some level to not give up. As you were saying, the people that have that tiny micro percent of, stick-to-itiveness, giving up isn't an option. They're like, I am going to figure this out.
Well, let's circle us back about Formula One since the season's starting this weekend. All right. I'm going to talk to you guys about another story, and I'll make this one succinct. Nico Rosberg is racing against Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton, again, he's been the world champion 7 times. He moved over to Ferrari for this season. He's been with Mercedes. He was with McLaren, then he was with Mercedes, and he left Mercedes, went to McLaren. And in world sports, him going to him going to Ferrari has been one of the biggest news stories in the history of sports. I know in the United States, we're still catching up, but the reality of it is it was a huge deal. So when Nico was racing, Nico was the only teammate. So in Formula One, each team has 2 drivers and has 2 cars. So each Ferrari, Mercedes, doesn't matter. They essentially are running 2 competing teams inside the main team. There was Nico Rosberg and then there's Lewis Hamilton. They had their own pit crew, their own cars, their own everything. So Nico beats Lewis. He's his only, what do you want to call it, teammate that's ever actually beat him. Nobody else who's ever been partnered with Lewis ever beat him and for the championship. Nico came from a racing family. Nico is not somebody who grew up with hardship. He grew up in Monaco. His dad, Kiki, I think, was a famous driver himself. He went to all these, beautiful schools and grew up, that type of lifestyle. Lewis didn't. Lewis grew up. The stories are his dad didn't have a lot of money. He often had to sleep on people's couches, couldn't afford hotels, the whole thing. It is what it is. All right. So Nico finally beats Lewis and it almost killed him. And you could see during the season that it was killing him. He beats him once and then he quits Formula One. He wins the championship once and he said, I'm out. Okay. So he accomplished his one goal and then he left. Lewis has won 7 world championships. Max has now won 4. Michael Schumacher won 7. So what causes people after they've won at the highest level to keep on winning? Because they don't have a choice. There is no retiring. There is no quitting. With Nico, he didn't have that little thing that we're talking about. And that's the reason, basically, once he had that one thing, he just wanted to basically pack up his race gear and go home. And I'm not criticizing. And to Julie's point, well, I'll say, Julie, this is kind of an interesting thing. You don't have to have that 1% thing in real estate to be the absolute dominant player in your marketplace. You don't. You don't have to have the ultra competitive killer nature that you would.
No, I would agree with that. Yeah.
You don't have to have it.
But you do have to work on it.
You do. You have to do what you don't want to do and you don't want to do at the highest level. And if you don't have any resemblance of that competitive nature then the work itself is going to seem harder. So like, for example, if I'm talking to somebody who's in a real estate equivalent to, Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen or Michael Schumacher, I don't ever have to motivate them as a coach. Never
I agree with
freaking
that. Yeah.
once, ever.
It's not an issue. It's not even a discussion.
Never.
Yeah.
I never have to pick them up. They might have their asses handed to them occasionally, or something got by them, and I get to point it out to them. But for the most part, you never have these pep talks.
No.
Now, it's just, some people, they just need it constantly. I'd say probably 50% of coaching is making people, get over the hardship in selling real estate, and the fact that the market, it's literally oftentimes
Encouragement and support. Yeah.
yeah, that's what 50% of it truly is. Basically being a safe place where they can go and feel constant support, and they can, that. But when you get that real saber-toothed tiger person, they don't need it. And matter of fact, if you try to give them motivation, in the traditional sense, they resent you for it because they perceive you're being condescending to them.
That's right.
That's what happens. And so you come across these people in life in general, but you don't have to have that little saber-toothed tiger nature of it. But you can tell over time who's got it and who doesn't based on their past performance. So, Nico won 1 year and then he quit. That's all I need to know. And I don't blame him. I'm not taking anything away from him. He wanted to spend more time with his family. He wanted to raise his children. He'd made tens of millions of dollars. He did not have any financial.
He's still great at it. He just wasn't at the very peak.
Yeah, he didn't want to do it anymore. And so I guess really, as Formula One starts up again, I'm obviously very enthusiastic about the season starting again. But the thing I really take away from this conversation that I've had with Julie is that the acknowledgement that there is something special out there, that you might not have it. Just accept that you're not that 1%, and you'll know based on your past performance. You'll know when you come across somebody who has it. And don't be discouraged just because God's given us all different gifts, because in real estate, you can learn to do the things that the person does who's got that 1% thing, and you can win, and you can, frankly, you can make millions and millions of dollars over your career. And so just put all these little pieces and parts together. And so hopefully, Julie, I wasn't trying to discourage anybody. I was just merely telling them this is Freeform Friday. We talk about what we talk about, right?
I know. Well, it's a matter of like appreciating and like emulating and absorbing maybe just 2 or 3 of their traits or techniques. This is one of the ways that they train. We talk about amateur musician versus professional. Every now and then we do a side by side with a professional so we can absorb some of that. I have to take care of this very quickly.
I know. So let's pause because I got to go get coffee. All right. I'm completely re-infused with coffee. Yes. So Julie, as we went through this, and I was thinking about all of our, past coaching clients and the ones that have really become exceptional in their careers and have gone off to do different things. It really does come down to a handful of qualities. And I'd say that if you had to encapsulate what the top 3 qualities were for those people that had that little special extra secret sauce, I think it would be good if you and we haven't prepared for this. So it'd be good if you and I really were to drill down what those qualities were. And I would say, and let's just go back and forth. So I would say the number 1 quality that you have to have, or you're going to lose consistently, is a unbelievable desire to win. And you have to not be afraid of competition, and you have to look for, in every aspect of your life, whatever you don't choose to do something. Now I'm kind of meandering into number 2, but don't spend too much. You can have hobbies and interests and whatnot, but if you're going to do something, do it 100% and leave nothing to chance. So if you're going to decide to take up kettlebells, or you're going to decide to write a book, and you're going to, don't leave a trail of half-assed finished projects in your wake, because that erodes your ability to essentially, it kills your confidence. So number 1 is you have to absolutely understand in life, there's one winner and then there's one loser on everything. When you're finding a mate, when you're getting a parking spot, when you're trying to win a listing, when you're trying to everything in life, the competition is real. And anybody or anything that tries to take the edge off the reality that life is all about competition. And I know there's a whole hell of a lot of woo-woo and mindset stuff about this, that people that are telling you to stop and smell the roses and the rest of it. But I'll say that all the people that had this little extra secret sauce thing, they definitely recognize the fact that competition is real and that they must win. I would start with that one.
Yes, excuse me, I agree with that. I think that the icing on that is the at the highest level is what you're talking about. A lot of people can make themselves do things they don't want to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. I can convince myself I've got to do my lead follow up. I've got to, and you can hear it in the coaching calls. You can hear it in their language. They'll say, I got to get through my lead follow up. Well, are you just here to get through life or, your lead follow up? Are you setting appointments? Are you going to call to set appointments? Are you going to call to have real conversations where you could hear no? So that would bring me to number 2 is the willingness to have some rejection, sometimes perceived, sometimes real, and to persevere anyway. The stick-to-itiveness that we talk about sometimes.
Well, Julie, you said something really good there. You went over it too fast, though. You said basically, if you want ever increasing levels of success in your business and personal life, you have to do what you want to do, what you don't want to do when you don't want to do at the highest level. Okay, that's really important. And then she emphasized the words at the bottom, the end of it, which was at the highest level. So if you've got that je ne sais quoi, that 1%, the secret sauce, you don't have to be told to do what you don't want to do. You don't have to be told to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. And you sure as hell never have to be told to do it at the highest level. So when you come across somebody that operates like that, that's a special person and you should embrace that. That's what I think you were trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that other people would perceive that that's too many steps. You're studying too hard. You're practicing too hard. You don't have to send a pre-listing package. Just get the listing off your personality. They're going to like you or they're not. It's at the highest level where you're doing things in a practiced approach where you have a desired outcome of winning. That you're not just going to say, well, you win some, you lose some. You have a desire of winning and you're going to prepare and you're going to operate as such. That's a completely different approach to life and certainly to business than what most people have. And people will criticize that, I don't need to be competitive, right? I don't like competition. Then we should have an even playing field. Well, life doesn't have an even playing field. And I think it's the ability to accept that and to make it your own and decide that you're going to win.
I think, but here's the blessing of real estate. So I don't like talking about myself, but I'm going to. Orange Theory. And we were in part of Orange Theory is they do this absolutely horrendously horrible timed 1 minute mile. And so remember I told you guys before when Julie and I were living in Georgetown, we were around a lot of these Navy SEAL type guys. And so a lot of them, well, I wouldn't say a lot of them, probably 5 or 6 of them would show up occasionally in our Orange Theory class. And these guys were like huge. I mean, they have an inherited physical advantage over me that is just ridiculous. And if you're running on a treadmill against somebody who's taller than you, they're going to naturally run faster because their legs can have a bigger stride. Simple.
Yeah. And they have more power. Yeah.
So when I went into Orange Theory and we would do these time 1 minute miles, I always raced against, there was a guy named Justin who used to play football, professional football. There was another guy. He never actually completely came out and told me what branch. I know he was in the Army, but I don't know what he was. And I know he was somebody special because when other Army people would come in, they recognize him. So he was some sort of badass. Anyway, I would run intentionally. Nobody else wanted to be near him. He was a super nice guy, but because he was operating at such a high level that no one wanted to be on the treadmill next to him. And I'll tell you where he really dominated was on the rowing machine. That insane.
Yeah, I remember.
And I would always look to see where he was, and I'd always run next to him, and I'd always row next to him because he was always going to make me work my ass off. He was always nice. He was never antagonistic to me. Some of the other guys were, which was funny because they saw I was trying to compete with him. So over the years, I got better and better. So what they did is in Orange Theory, they would do brackets as far as who ran the fastest 1 minute mile, and say my age group was 40 to 50 or something. And I think I was actually 40 to 47, and they'd do different brackets. And I wanted to win, and I didn't give a rat's ass who I was going to compete against. And I didn't care if it was going to kill me. And it almost
That's
did.
because you have that thing. Yeah.
I have it when I choose to use it. Right.
That's right. You deployed it.
So if you guys aren't familiar with running, and remember, I think I was 46 or 47 when I did this. I ran and I was the fastest in the gym in my age bracket. And I was a 5 minute, 14-second mile. Okay. That's really flying.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy. Oh yeah. I will. And I remember like getting it. It was unbelievably torturous. I was running so fast and my pulse was going so fast. I didn't want to see how fast my pulse was going. So I took off the monitor.
Yeah.
But I know where it was going. I was like operating 180 beats per second, 190 beats per second. And evidently, I later found out that if your heart, the maximum the human heart can pump is 220 beats per second. But if you do it for too long, you basically die. I bet I was going 220 to essentially accomplish that goal. It was stupid, but it was amazing because I did it. I did it one more time and I did it a different, 6 months later and I did it 5 minutes, 17 seconds. So it wasn't an anomaly. But going through that, I had to put your body doesn't want you to do it. I physically would have pains. I remember I literally get sometimes chest pains because your heart's a muscle and the muscle is going like, okay, whatever. It's just like if you were doing bicep curls or whatever, your biceps are going to hurt. Well, your heart was hurting. My legs would hurt. I would be exhausted. After I was done, I couldn't even stand up. I would just basically pass out. But yeah, so I did it. The point being is that was an environment where I absolutely was not, I was mentally able, but physically I had nothing else going for me. Really. I was half the size of these guys and definitely didn't have the physical backgrounds that they did. Definitely didn't have the training that they did. I maybe had the mental strength that they did. Evidently I did. But yeah, there's an example. So that's when, some little, Irish dude from Ohio can basically go out and go to.
So why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? You didn't have to do that.
Well, it's because I decided I was going to do it. That's why, because I wanted to do it because I choose wisely the things that we're going to be the best at, that I'm going to be the best at. And I don't choose too many of them. And like, I'm never going to learn how to play golf because I know if I start playing golf, I might really, really like it. And then I don't want to do it because then I'll spend all my time trying to be good at it. I've never learned how to ski, I'm not going to go paragliding and I'm not going to go jumping out of planes and whatever. I'm going to choose the things that we're going to do, that I'm going to choose. And then together we choose the other things and we're going to decide those are the things we're going to be the best at. And you and I made that decision. We've been married for this year for 34 years and we choose wisely. And that goes to something else. I'd say back to the qualities. They choose wisely what they're going to be the best at. And
I would agree with that. Yep.
Okay. So they choose wisely. So if you're going to choose to do something where you can be the best at, don't be a moron and decide you're going to win in the NBA when you're 5'9" like me, right? You got to be thinking, what can I choose to be best at? What are my natural talents and abilities? Like we have people that'll show up and I have so many funny stories, but Rob Johnson's the one that's the most hilarious. He showed up in our lives and he's number one agent in Greenwich, Connecticut. And he said straight up, I'll never freaking make a prospecting call. And if you, at the same day you ask me to do it, it's the same day I'll fire you.
At least he's honest.
And so what will you do, Rob?
Yeah,
and he rattled off the things. He didn't really have an answer. And so we had to say, well, do you do this? Do you do that? And we figured out the things he was going to be good at or the things that he would do. And those things that he would do, we made him the best at. And by the way, centers of influence and past clients. And networking with other agents. And so we had him do those two things. And I told you what the outcome was. So if you're going to choose something and if you're going to be the best of something, you have to choose wisely what you're going to choose to be the best at. And here's another thing. I wrote this down. Here's what I wrote down. I'm going to show you. I wrote down the word passion and I put a circle with a line through it. Now, how many people right now, as I say that, are offended? Because after all, Julie, aren't we supposed to follow our passion and the money?
I know.
Well, but I mean, it's asininity, really. It's the height of just goofiness. Follow your passion and the money will follow. That's not true. So what if, for example, your passion is to, I don't know, basket weave? What if your passion is to make pottery? Oh, you're going to make.
I like to paint by numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Julie, I got you on that, by the way. So what if Julie's passion is paint by numbers? Screw it. Okay. I'll tell you a coaching story. I'll tell us a coaching story. So I had these two great coaching clients, husband and wife, and they were in Arizona, I think it was Arizona. And they used to sell farm and ranch. And they were working their asses off, proactively generators, always made over $1 million a year, fantastic agents. And then one day he decides it's not, he listened to the book or watched the movie The Secret. If you guys know what era that was, we're talking about early 2000s. And so he watched The Secret and he said, you know what? Selling real estate's never been my passion. I want to be a fine artist. I want to start taking pictures. And he literally, his wife's, I remember their name now. I won't say their name, but I'll say the wife's name because I'll never forget this call. Her name was Lisa. So Lisa came to the coaching call and she was crying. Normally her husband and her were on these calls and he wasn't there. And she was like crying and she's saying, I feel all the horribleness that you can possibly feel when your partner, not just your husband in her case, abandoned them. And now he's off doing fine art. He's off taking pictures. And that's going to be his passion. So his belief was, and he actually believed this, that I'm going to follow my passion and the money will follow. And I asked him, well, how the hell are you going to make money in real estate? Well, the universe will bring me, and he started all this woo-woo crap. And, it wasn't a good outcome, bottom line, without going into detail, because I feel like I'm talking at a church, talking about clients, even mentioning her name, but there you go. So the moral of the story is this: when we're led to believe that follow our passion and the money will follow, it's just an enormous lie. And it's an absolute destroyer of potential, because what's going to happen is you're going to start out, let's say in real estate, and you're going to say, real estate's my passion. I've always wanted to do it. And then all of a sudden, real estate reality hits you in the face. You learned about it's a glamourless, hard, thankless, especially when you're starting career. It just is. And you're not going to get a lot of passion out of most of the things you have to do in real estate to be successful. And nobody's going to tell you it until you experience it. And so if you start out by saying real estate was going to be my passion, and then you realize that, oh my God, this is hard, this is not what I want to do, then all of a sudden you've lost your passion for real estate and you've given yourself an excuse to fail. And a lot of people do that. So if you believe that you can only be successful when you feel passionate, you're always going to fail, because passion is nothing other than a fleeting emotion. It ebbs and it flows. It's, sometimes, you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, here I'm enjoying this nice cup of coffee. Like, nothing's better than the cup of coffee you have in the morning, first cup of coffee. For like maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes, it's like all the chemicals are firing off in your brain and you're getting a little first cup of coffee. Okay. Then it wears off. Right. And then you're back to normal, you're back to reality, and you try to get that passion back by having more coffee, and it doesn't work, because once your brain's got a dosage it needs to sort of wake up, even more of the same thing doesn't give you that feeling again. That's what happens with passion. And so if you're believing that you can only be successful when you spend your time and energy focusing on doing something that you're passionate about, there are probably a few. I don't think there are actually any exceptions to what I'm saying. I don't think there are any musicians that have been musicians. I'm teeing Julie up to tell a story. I don't think there's any musicians that have ever been passionate their entire careers. And because after a while, Julie, do you remember that great movie with Angelina Jolie, the opera singer?
Yeah, I can't
Did you
remember
watch
the name of
that?
it, though. Yes.
That was so good. Well, so
Marie Callas, I think.
Marie Callas, that was her name.
Yeah.
Yep. And so
No,
she.
I was thinking maybe, I think maybe Max would say his passion is racing, but
I doubt it.
maybe not. Maybe
doubt
not.
it.
Maybe his passion is winning.
His
I think
passion
that's
is
what
winning.
it is.
Right, for
That's
sure.
what it is. And it's, how are you going
But
to do that?
Hold on.
Go ahead.
I disagree. I don't
Okay,
think
tell
he
me.
would. I don't think he would ever say my passion is winning. I would say winning is innate, and I don't need to feel passion to want to win, because what you're saying is I don't think those two things
Is
are
it
connected.
competing that's his passion?
Julie, are you only operating at the level you're operating at on some of your coaching calls and the other things we're doing professionally and personally because you're passionate about it? Hell no.
No.
Are you passionate about going to the gym? Are you
Not.
passionate about some of the other things that you and I are doing right now, and we have different businesses that we're partners in? Can you tell me one damn thing that we've worked on professionally speaking in the last 6 months that you're passionate about? I can think of one thing. But actually I can think of nothing.
Okay.
Can you think of one thing that we worked on professionally in the last
No.
6 months? I can't either.
Yeah.
I can't.
That doesn't mean we don't care about it. Doesn't mean we
No.
don't give it everything we've got. But
Okay,
yeah,
so-
you're right. It's either your passion point. Yeah.
So why are you doing it? What's the work fuel?
The results that we get for our coaching clients and for us.
Right. So your passions are fueled by doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest
For sure.
level. Okay. So are you passionate about travel?
I'm passionate about being there,
You don't like the planning
not the
and
process.
Yeah, but you're passionate about the results that come
Yeah,
from
that's
essentially
right. The
helping other.
results.
Okay, so
Mhm.
that's see that little thing. I think that the 1% that je ne sais quoi, the secret sauce people, I think they know that.
Mhm.
I don't think they wait.
I
I
think they're
don't think
closer to it.
uh it's not, again, it's not. So Julie, this goes back to goal setting, right? This
Mhm.
goes back to motivation. And if people think they could only be motivated when they have their dream board set up and they have their big whys and they know what their passion is, that is a I think a very elegant, well orchestrated lie. That's what I think is true, because you need to have goals. Goal is a dream with an action plan. You need to have, do your real estate treasure map, have all this thing set up. But to believe that you have to know what your big why is or to have passion, those are the things that discourage people. It all goes back to the same thing. If you don't know what your big why is and you're a believer that you have to have your big why because you just read some book and went to listen to some guru and he said you have to have your big why. If you decide on what your big why is, but all of a sudden it's no longer your big why, then you've lost your motivation and you're not going to do what you don't want to do and you don't want to do it at the highest level. You guys get it? If you believe that you can only be successful when you feel passion and you feel passion randomly now and then, but it's hardly ever
Or
something
never. A lot of
or
people feel
never.
it never.
And the word passion can be interchanged with other things, right? You could just use the word motivation, right? If
Mhm.
you're if you're waiting to feel like, how many of you right now are passionately motivated to pick up the phone right now and call an expired? Anybody?
Said no one ever.
No one ever, right?
Yeah.
But you're
I mean, some
passionate,
people don't even get out of bed in the morning unless they feel like doing it,
right?
Eh,
Exactly.
They don't
That's what
follow
I'm
as
saying.
the
Yeah.
discipline. So yeah, I'm with you.
Right. And so if there is something, Julie, would you agree that drives the most successful people? It's this, again, innate desire. It's something that needs to be expressed. It's something inside of them that needs to be expressed that they can't quite encapsulate or explain to other people.
Yeah, something, yeah, that they wouldn't describe necessarily.
Well, what are you thinking? You're thinking. I can see what
Um,
you're thinking look on.
I think that people have to have things that they're striving towards. That's why we do a lot of goal setting and coaching. But I don't think anybody's ever like felt passionate about selling real estate. People
What do you
claim that they do, but they are passionate about the results that they get for themselves and their clients. They're not like, I'm going to call that FISBO today. Nobody's ever like, that's not the thing that you're going towards. I do think, I guess I would disagree with you a little bit on the goal board thing, because when you're having a crappy day in real estate and you just had 2 or 3 deals die and you're thinking like the whole world is full of awful clients that hate me and mean realtors, I think it is beneficial to look up at your dream board and say, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to go after that. And I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call somebody so that I can get out of this rut. And if you
right?
don't have some of those anchors, that it makes it a lot harder.
But the effort cannot be predicated on feeling passion, or the
No, I agree
effort
with that.
and the results cannot be predicated on knowing what your big why is. And that's where a lot of people fail
Yeah, I
because
think that's
they
right.
will lose disconnection or they'll get discouragement or their environment won't be conducive to them having consistent passion or, whatever the other
Sure.
things are. And so at the end of the day, again, real estate is, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. Real estate is one of the easiest industries to make the most amount of money with really a relatively minor amount of, comparably to other industries that pay similarly,
Hmm.
skill. So I think you can be wild if you have a good sale price and
Yeah.
you have a, let's say, a slightly, I mean, you don't have to have really huge off the charts personality or looks or even skill. But if you have stick to itiveness,
Yes.
if you have focus, if you have that desire to win at all costs, I mean,
If you don't give up easily.
right, you're going to win
Hmm.
and you're going to get paid and you can make millions of dollars. That's true with, I'm sure, other industries, but not ones that I'm aware, and you don't have somebody that's you're like, if you're trying to be a really famous actor, there's so many gatekeepers that are going to prevent you from ever being a really famous actor, that there's so many points of failure on your quest to accomplish that particular goal. And even like the belief that being famous makes you rich, that's not true. And if your goal is to be famous, that's easy. Just, relatively speaking, you can be famous on social media, but to be rich where you actually have financial freedom, where your money works for you, you no longer work for your money, that's a totally different skill set. It's a different
Hmm.
mindset. Um, But all I'm saying is that at the end of the day, real estate is one of these. I mean, you and I are living proof of it, to be honest with you. I
Mhm.
mean, you and I had no skills when we got into the real estate business. I'd say I had passion for you. I have, passion for our marriage. I had passion for the life that we had in front of us. But as
Mhm.
far as passion for real estate, hell to the no. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I never did. The only thing I even remotely liked in real estate was going on listing appointments. Well, how about you?
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet we persevered and we made something of it.
Well, we sold thousands of homes. Our first year in the business, we sold over 100 houses. And, you know, we probably, if we knew what the hell we were doing, we could have sold like 300,
Yeah.
but we still sold over
But we
100.
had the desire to succeed and we had, I don't remember any time where we thought it wasn't going to work.
Right, exactly. Well, so that would be another element, right? So you're going back to what are the commonalities of the
Yeah.
secret sauce types. They might have occasional doubt and have to make course corrections, but there was never a doubt that they're going to accomplish whatever the particular goal is, where other
Yeah.
people are constantly wrestling with that sense of,
Trying it out, seeing
yeah,
how it goes.
right.
Lack of commitment, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with all those things. So you had a
Like,
story.
have you ever seen a Formula One driver or an Olympian or, who is even playing, much less winning, who's just like trying it out? No, they're not like doing that. And then I'm also going to be an Uber driver because, maybe that'll work out better. They're not like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And they don't
Yeah,
give up, even when they have losses or, they have mistakes, sometimes big or small failures. I mean, like your example from the wreck, like spinning over. That always amazes me. Like they get up and walk back to the paddock. Like who does that? You know,
yeah.
they
Well,
don't just throw in the towel. I guess that was it. You know?
so if you're if someone's listening right now, hopefully they're feeling some motivation and realization that they can accomplish whatever they set their mind to. It's
Hmm.
true, but you got to choose wisely. You got to choose a goal that makes the most sense. And real estate, again, it does not matter what your age is, does not matter what your education level is, does not matter what you look like.
No.
It probably does matter what you smell like, though. Let's be honest. If you smell, you're probably gonna have some issues.
And you need a license, and that's about it. Yeah.
Hold on. Yes, and you need a license. So
Yeah.
you're in something right now where you can be as wildly successful as you choose to allow yourself to be with learning how to go on, do a set of
Some
listing
basic
appointments,
skill.
pre-qualify, the basic skill, the 7-step listing process, the things we teach you in coaching. And
Mhm.
and the word is master, once you master those skills, you might not ever want to do what the guy or the gal in the absolute, pinnacle position in your marketplace is willing to do. But I promise you, there's tons of money to be made off their breadcrumbs. There's tons of money being made
Sure.
in that even in the best of the rest group, depending on what your price point is, lots of opportunity. But if you're one of the top maybe 3 players in the marketplace and you are, competing against really well entrenched, well established folks, you can make millions and millions of dollars per year. You can have an
Yes.
amazing career. That's the thing that's a blessing about real estate. And I think, Julie, what you and I have been driven by our entire coaching careers more than anything is making it so the person who's not the 1%, doesn't have the secret sauce, can be wildly successful. And I
Hmm.
think in a lot of ways we've done that to our own detriment. And I'm going to explain what I mean. Okay.
Okay.
I think you and I have the podcasts that we do every day, the notes that we've done, the education, the training that we've done, all the things that we've done to try to help folks in the real estate industry be successful. Even our premier coaching product and our coaching programs. When
Hmm.
you look, when you look to see what's involved in premier coaching and what is included in premier coaching, and you actually compare the content, the pre-listing packs, the listing presentations, the scripts, the objection handlers, the plans, the systems, and you actually see what you're getting, you and I have so overperformed what the market demanded in terms of what we've produced and the content we've created for these guys. But we've done that because in my heart, and I know you feel the same way, I'm always thinking I need to make sure that whatever we do is going to help the person that doesn't have that secret sauce. I want to
Yes.
make it so that person, the secret sauce person, they're going to be successful with or without us.
Hmm.
They are. But the best of the rest group, what can I do to help those people actually latch on to what that next level is like? And so when you and I create the pre-listing pack, when we do all this really would be argued as extra work that we do,
Mhm.
I mean, you and I talk about this. We always joke to say when we've done we do the podcast, we've done over 7,000 podcasts, and each podcast is maybe a half hour to an hour long, but
Mhm.
each podcast to prep for it takes probably 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours, depending what the
Yep.
content is. And we've done that every single day for the past, since 2014, I think. And we have over 7,000 past podcasts. And what's motivated us to do that? Because we are always thinking about the person who's out there, who's in Iowa, who's in Chicago, who's in, Clearwater, Florida, who wants to break free of being essentially an also ran, who wants to break free of that best of the rest, who wants to essentially latch on to the best versions of themselves as a real estate practitioner. And so when we're creating something for you guys or choosing the words that we're going to say on the podcast, our minds are always thinking about how can we help that person? What can we say, what we can do? And you guys, that resonates with you. And I know it does because you tell us, when you listen to Julie and I present, you listen to us on the podcast, you are with any of our coaches, there is something extra there that you can't find. You can hear it, you can feel it when you are consuming. Like if you watch a bunch of YouTube videos and you turn off the video and you just listen to the words, a lot of times those people are saying absolutely nothing. And then when you hear Julie and I express about how to do lead follow-up or how to something like that, we're giving you the information in such a way that we want you to immediately use it so you can go out and make money the second you hear it. I mean, that's what's always driven us, being of service at a level that we see is lacking in the marketplace. We're not just a big feel good social club. We're truthfully or driven by, and I'm not going to say passion because that's not really what it is, but we're driven by our innate desire to give you guys a product that's going to make your lives measurably better and in every way. That's what we focus on. That's what drives Julie and I at this point in our careers.
100%. And to get you there faster than you otherwise would have. And I think that when I'm working with you to create the things that we bring to them with Premier Coaching, whether that's presentations or scripts or whatever, I come from a place of us having been there, done that. And I think about early us in our careers, like, wouldn't it have been awesome to have an actual, say, open house system instead of like trying to figure that out? Every different house, different price range, different. I don't remember what I did last week, but it didn't work. So I don't know. Maybe open houses don't work. Like wandering around in the wilds of real estate, wondering, what am I supposed to be doing? So I have, like, I guess I kind of channel our career, as well as all of our coaches and when we strongly believe in always, all of our coaches are always out there selling. They're always licensed. They're not retired. They're not, they're in the field, feeling what you feel, doing what you do. And so I think for our business, what we're trying to accomplish is getting you there faster with more confidence and making you into the best agents that you can be, the best brokers that you can be, the best business people that you can be. Whether that means that you're the top 0.5%, you don't have to be. I mean, to your point, Tim, when you get there, you will know and you'll decide. And keep in mind, the average commission is $10,000 per deal. You have to do less than a deal a month to make more than $100,000 a year. And you're going to learn on every deal and you're going to get better on every deal. And some of you are going to say, you know what? Now that I've done that for 3 months in a row, I bet you I could do 2 deals a month. I bet you I could do 5 deals a month. And you find your motivation. You might not come to this business with that confidence, but we're always trying to give that to you so that you can make wise decisions in your life. Some of you guys are part-time and doing something else, and that's great. Make your decisions based on the skill that you can build. Our job is to make you the best that we can help you to become on your own. That's my North Star.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Real estate is a unique position because there's no income cap. You don't have to buy your own inventory. With a reasonable level of skill, you can survive long enough to build your skill. And unlike things like you use the example of becoming an actor, right? Think about what actors have to go through. They have to have other jobs to pay for their pursuit of acting that are not acting. They have to be waiters and waitresses. In real estate, you can learn doing leases. You can learn by being somebody's assistant. You could be a transaction coordinator and make money and get better. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, when you join us at Premier Coaching, you're skipping all of that learning curve.
That's right.
It all comes back down to like, and this goes back to, I think, the qualities of the 1%, that quality, that je ne sais quoi. is they don't want to screw around. They
Nope.
they sniff out bullshit really fast. And anything whatever is going to get them up Mount Everest the quickest with the least
Mhm.
probability of dying, they're going to hire the best Sherpa, and that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Let me tell you guys a Sherpa story. Julie didn't want me to tell this story. We were doing a Zoom about a month ago now, and she more or less told me not to tell the story in that Zoom, but I'm going to tell it now. You know what I'm going to tell them about?
I do, but remember my cautionary tale about this. So I'll be interested
Okay.
to see how you pull it all together.
Well, I'll try to make it a mindset story, but I will.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys know what Mount Everest is, and some things that you might not know about Mount Everest is that there's a lot of people that have died trying to climb it. And so there's this, I don't know if the word would be tribe, but let's say there's this community of people that are at the base of Mount Everest, and their last names are all Sherpa. So a Sherpa is a person that helps you go up Mount Everest, but a Sherpa is also their last names. So if you ever come across anybody with the last name of Sherpa, chances are they're from that whole Nepal, Mount Everest region. Okay, so that's kind of cool in itself. So these Sherpas, if you decide, you're gonna, this is like one of the things I would never freaking do, just for the record, but I know people that have done this.
The
They,
anti-bucket list.
this is not exactly, this is the heck to the no list.
Yeah.
All right, so you get this wild hair up your what have you, and you decide that you're going to climb to the top of Mount Everest. And so you hire a Mount Everest coach, and you hire someone that's going to teach someone to help you buy all your gear. You're going to read a bunch of books. You're going to join some Mount Everest climbing Facebook groups. You're going to do what you're going to do. And then you go to Mount Everest, and then you're going to go to the Sherpas, and you're going to say, I'm looking for some Sherpas to help me climb up to the top of Mount Everest. And there's Sherpas that have done it successfully. There's Sherpas that have tried, haven't made it to the top. And unfortunately, there's Sherpas who have tried, haven't made it to the top, and some of them have died. But you can go and you can actually choose which Sherpa or Sherpas you're going to use to get to the top of Mount Everest. And you pay more based on the level of experience they have at successfully getting people to the top of Mount Everest and back down again. The back down again, by the way.
That's the key right there.
All right. So what happens is that like when you got all your crap, you got all your gear, you got all your little puffy jackets. Now, the thing with the puffy jackets is kind of funny. It's a story in itself. So the reason, listeners, viewers, that you want to wear a bright colored jacket when you're climbing up Mount Everest is if you get lost, they'll see the bright orange, or they'll see the bright yellow, they'll see the whatever the bright color is. All right. And so it's all the rainbow colors that you can possibly imagine. Remember, I told you that. I'm going to go back to it in a second. So you've shown up with all your fancy gear, and the Sherpas have fancy gear themselves. But what the Sherpas will do, and these are demure people. They're not huge, monstrous, MMA fighters. So what these guys do is they'll put a lot of your crap on their back, and they'll be there to help you climb. So depending how big your group is, you might have one Sherpa per person or two Sherpas per people, and they're going to go up, and they know. So you're standing at the base of the mountain. The Sherpas know how to read the clouds, read the weather, know what time of year it is, and they know when it's a good time to start climbing and when it's a bad time to start climbing. And sometimes you'll have people that'll show up, and they'll be like, they don't even hire Sherpas. They watched a video on YouTube. They on that Facebook group, they're going to do it themselves. They got a freaking app that's going to tell them how to climb Mount Everest. So some of them go up the mountain without Sherpas. Some of them basically hire Sherpas that aren't that experienced. Maybe have never even done it before, but they're Sherpas. You guys see where I'm going with this? People call themselves real estate coaches, but it does not mean they're the Sherpa that gets you up and gets you down again, has the proof of having been able to do it, thousands of times. So you decide you're at base camp. You hired your Sherpas. You got all your gear. The Sherpa is going to tell you, okay, we're going to go up this side of the mountain, and then there's a base camp, 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 and then we're going to get to the top. Okay, so the Sherpas are going to tell you when to climb, when not to climb. One of the base camps, as you're going to get to the first base camp, which is this big base camp. It's almost like a permanent camp. There's tents that are always there. There's essentially it's set up like a little small, tentish community that's on this sort of safe side of the mountain that the weather doesn't sometimes. Basically, what I'm saying is this is almost like a permanent encampment. Is the easiest way to explain it. Okay, hold on. I got to kill something. Give me 2 seconds. Our vacuum is going to start making a lot of noise here, and I have to
You've
tell the vacuum.
motivated Roomba to climb the mountain.
No, we don't have we have a robo locks. Yeah, exactly. I'm motivating it to come out. I gotta tell it to go take a nap.
Inspired.
Hold on. Yeah, it's inspired. All right, hold on. Ah, okay. Now it's quiet. All right, so the here's the challenge. If people will hire the wrong Sherpa, people won't listen to their Sherpas, even if they hire the right one. People won't buy the right gear. People won't even have any resemblance of, they shouldn't be climbing the damn mountain. They shouldn't even be thinking about climbing the mountain. And their arrogance and their hubris, I'm a big ass, this, that, and the other thing. I have this great personality. Everybody likes me. I've got big centers of influence and past client. I never need to learn how to, have the skills. I never need to learn how to prep for listing appointments. I don't need a pre-listing pack. I'm all this. I'm born this way. I've always had this special thing. Everyone likes me. I don't need to be hiring the best Sherpas I possibly can. Remember, I just told you that. Those are the types of people that die on the mountain. Their hubris, their arrogance, their sense of entitlement. They're never going to get to the top. The people that don't prepare ahead of time, maybe when they were back in, Columbus, Ohio, they're not getting in good shape. They're not doing things that are physically preparing themselves, mentally preparing themselves. They're not even remotely ready to start climbing the mountain. Then the dominoes of bad decisions continue to fall. Right. So here's where the part is that Julie didn't want me to tell you. So the bright coats, remember I referenced those before? There's Julie, if you could Google this, I don't remember what the exact name is. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I mean, if you use AI on your phone, you can find it really quick. There's a side of this mountain that when the snow thaws, and there's pictures online, you can find these. When the snow thaws, okay, and or the wind's not blowing a certain direction, you will see there's a side of the mountain where it looks like there's a rainbow. There's all these colors that are coming up the side of this mountain. And you look at it from a picture and
Rainbow Valley.
Rainbow Valley. All right. So when you look, and you don't hear people ever talking about this. I've never heard anybody in any of the movies and any of the things about people climbing Everest. I've never heard one single person talk about Rainbow Valley. Julie, are you looking at a picture of it?
Yeah. Well, let's see. Do you want me to read quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mount Everest is the word that probably has hung up everybody's tongue since its confirmation, the world's highest mountain, et cetera. Have you ever heard about the Rainbow Valley Everest? Well, it's the dark side of Mount Everest. The Rainbow Valley Everest is a must-see fact before making the ascent. It goes on to talk about the article about talking about all the beautiful valleys, but the place is not as beautiful as it sounds because Rainbow Valley is an area below the northern ridge. This area is about 8,000 meters. It's a site that's stretched with dead bodies of unsuccessful climbers. Until now, there's numerous remains in the stretch of Rainbow Valley. Blue, red, orange, and green colored jackets cover the dead bodies forever. I think that's what you were asking me about.
That's what I'm talking about. So if you look at a picture, if you can show a picture and turn it around and show it on your camera, but if you look at a picture of this, what it literally looks like, and that you can't even see all of them, but you can also find online, there's a picture of Everest you can find online, and there's little pinpoints where they've identified where bodies are. Because when you're climbing Everest, if someone slips, falls, someone dies from dehydration, someone freezes, they leave the body. The body's there forever. You're entombed in ice forever, and you're in the deep freeze forever. And so Rainbow Valley is where there's this collection of bodies, and you know what they are. Once you know what they are, you're just looking at this and you look at this picture, and it's some of the saddest, scariest, most horrible thing you can imagine. Because all these people had all this ambition and all this, their families. Oh, you're going to go climb Everest. This is my dream to climb Everest. And now all they are is a little red dot. You have to pull it back, Julie. So it's like right by where you pull it back between your mic and your.
I'm trying. Sorry.
Right
There's a picture of one of them frozen exactly as he fell.
Yeah. And so Everest, if you choose to climb at the wrong time, if you choose to hire the wrong Sherpa, if you don't choose the right gear, if you're not prepared, the probability of you making it past that first base camp, let alone making it any past that, is literally zero. And chances are you're just going to essentially be a member of the Rainbow Valley for eternity. This is the story Julie didn't want me to tell, but it's important because that's reality. That's life. That's essentially hiring the wrong Sherpa. That's not being prepared. That's not understanding what it takes to get to the top. Mount Everest is the biggest, gnarliest mountain that people climb on planet Earth, and very few people can claim of ever having climbed to the top of Mount Everest. Julie and I knew somebody, Andy Pulitz, who'd done it multiple times. But at the end of the day, you guys are in the exact same situation with who you choose, with what you read, with who you listen to, with what you think you're supposed to be doing with your time as a real estate professional. It's the same damn thing. And so when Julie and I are creating content or we're doing coaching calls or certainly podcasts, I'm not saying I'm thinking of the Rainbow Valley, but I would tell you what I am thinking of. I'm thinking about the person that got into the industry that had the potential, that had all the piss and vinegar, that they had the drive, they had the potential, and then they went up the Mount Everest on the wrong side. They listened to the wrong person. They thought they're going to build their business off social media or buying their business or being a part of a team where I'm going to pay 50% referral fees. They listened to the wrong person. They will never make it to base camp. And if they make it past base camp, God love them, but they're probably going to, unfortunately, they're going to be
frozen to the side. Yeah.
right. They're going to be one of the 71% of all agents last year that didn't sell a house. They're going to fail out of the business. The reason that the industry has such bad churn, it's huge, number of agents that basically churn out of the business. That's what that term means. It's not because they can't be successful. It's not because, as everyone's fond of saying, there's too many real estate agents. That's not true. It's because there's really unbelievably bad advice that's given to agents that's not preparing them, that's not giving them the correct advice as to when to climb the mountain, let alone where your base camp should be, not telling you what the storms are, the headwinds are, and you're ending up essentially real estate roadkill. I don't know how else to say it. So I was going back, trying to tie all these thoughts together, Julie, with regards to the je ne sais quoi, the secret sauce that some people have. I think they innately know that they will succeed. They will get to a certain height in their climb on their natural skills and talents, and then they will not piss around with listening to fake self-proclaimed Sherpas or real estate coaches or anything. They're not going to attach themselves to any sort of false religion or any sort of false set of beliefs that's going to do even remotely hinder the ability to climb to the top of Everest. ¿Qué piensas, chica?
Well, I was thinking about the poor frozen, puffer jacket people that, there's a lot of different analogies. And I appreciate you pulling that all together with regards to real estate and coaching and things like that. Fortunately, when you fail in real estate, you don't actually get frozen to the side of the mountain, but it wasn't the goal when you got your license, right? It's unconscious incompetence on one level. Maybe you don't know what you don't know. And that causes you to spend too much time, spend too much money, try the easy button. It's always about lead generation too. It's always like, if I just buy this, then it will rain leads on me. And then you blow all your money on that. And because you don't have any scripts or skills to convert those leads, even if you got them, now you're real estate roadkill. You're on the side of Everest.
Julie, don't you think it also comes down to the fact, who else have you ever heard in our space, anywhere in life, who's told you that most of like when you call yourself semi-professional, I'll call yourself a professional musician, whoever of all your coaches and your conductors and your teachers and everybody else, who has ever told you that when you want to get really good at anything, that it's going to not, whoever was honest enough to tell you that it's going to suck 98% of the time. That
I had some music teachers that said it's going to suck. If this is what you want to do, know that it's going to be thousands of hours in the practice room. That which is true. And I did have some that say the average musician the average like audition for, say, a really great orchestra has close to 100 rejection letters before they even get job one. So that's some reality. And that kind of ties back to, I felt a lot of passion about that, but that doesn't necessarily give you the paycheck behind it. So I think that,
don't bounce off that. So you and I were married, and you were doing a lot of orchestra gigs. You were, playing in soundtracks and doing things like that. And then you came across people that had made that their careers.
Yeah.
And you made the decision that the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. Like,
No.
you're good enough. You are so happy watching the movies about Everest that your little skinny butt never has to be the thing that's climbing up there. You're good watching the movie. You're good watching it. You remember the time when we were living in Vegas and we were at, what was that huge ass Miramax thing?
Yeah.
And you and I were like sitting.
IMAX. Yeah.
IMAX. Yeah. And we were watching this huge IMAX thing of people climbing Everest. And you and I were like, never, nope. But there was a moment when you were on that pursuit of being a
Sure.
musician where you decided it wasn't it for you because the result wasn't worth the work.
That's right. Even though I still feel passionate about it, but it's about, making good life decisions and realizing that you can be passionate about that. I don't have to stop loving music to, have a great career as a coach and selling real estate with you. And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be an either or type of thing.
Right.
So but I think the deal about the know your Sherpas is that they're I think you demonstrated well with your story. There's levels of, you've got the people that are like, I don't need a Sherpa, I got YouTube. you know I'll just watch some stuff. How hard could it be? Right. I've climbed. I did the Everest at Orange Theory on the treadmill.
There
Doesn't
actually
that
is
count for something?
there is something called that, and that does suck. Oh,
It does
we're
suck, but probably not as much as doing it in the cold at altitude. Okay.
you start out at 0. I think it's every minute you increase it by 1 degree,
It's
and
horrible.
you go as high as you can. I think 12 you're practically walking. You're like Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah,
exactly.
that's what they call
So
Everest. No,
there's the people that are like, I don't need that. I'll just watch a video or two. Then there's the people that are like, I don't need scripts, so I can find, or why would I pay for that? I can find some free stuff online. And then you're like, well, okay, maybe I need coaching, but because you don't necessarily know the right questions to ask to pre-qualify a coach, okay, then maybe you are with the wrong Sherpa, okay, or the wrong group of Sherpas. I think that applies to both real estate coaches and also sometimes brokerages. You can make the wrong choices there. And then you go, you know what? Like you were saying, people that are real serious about making this not just something they're trying out, but making it a career, and a career that is long lasting and really provides the lifestyle of their dreams for themselves and their families. Those are the ones that are like, all right, give me the best. Somebody who's been there and done that, who is going to help shave time off of my learning curve, who's going to call me out when I'm screwing something up, who's going to hold me accountable and get me to those goals faster than I could do on my own.
So you often say things you don't realize the ramifications of what you say, because you're just operating on on basically autopilot, unconscious competence, right? But you just said something that was really important. Just because somebody has sold real estate at a high level doesn't mean they know how to teach somebody else to do it as
This
well.
is true.
Right. And I say this to you guys from experience, that selling a lot of homes per year and selling thousands of homes in our career is far easier, far easier than doing what we've done in our coaching business. The work to become really, I think, you and I are at the top of our careers, as far as you more than me at this point. And a lot of our coaches are ascending the same, Mount Everest. But
sure.
the work to become a really good real estate coach is so much harder. And if you're really going to get good at it, if you're really going to be somebody that's going to help somebody get to the top of the mountain, than ever learning how to be good at a listing presentation or setting an expired listing appointment. There's no comparison.
Yeah.
But so why am I telling you this? Because even if you're talking with someone who's a top producing agent, it doesn't mean they know how to teach somebody else to be a top producing agent. It's a completely different skill set. So
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've known not coaches that work for us because they're all trained by us, but I've had people come to us that have said that they tried a different coach who only wanted to coach them on what that coach had done personally.
Well,
So
but you
like
hear that.
yeah, you
Social
hear that.
media.
Social media is a big one. Maybe the coach was really good at selling new construction, then that was their thing. But maybe the coaching client doesn't really have that much. That's not their jam. You have to have a lot of versatility, whether that was your thing or not. It's a totally different skill set, right? So, and we could go on, back and forth about all of the different discoveries that we've had over the years with coaching and coaching clients. But I think the main thing is, I guess the summary would be, don't get frozen to the mountain. Don't be part of the Rainbow Valley, which sounds lovely, but then when you find out what it actually is not so much.
Sweetie, we don't need to have a big crescendo. This is our Friday podcast.
That's
Julie's going through the big crescendo. No, I think hopefully you guys got something out of listening to us, and hopefully our somewhat, I think, tied together trains of thought here haven't crashed into each other in your own minds. But really, I hope what you guys take away from this is that, every day is a gift blessed life. Every day of your life where you wake up looking at the green side of the grass, you are living the dream, and you're unbelievably blessed. And especially if, frankly, if you're in real estate, especially in times like this, with the skill set that we help you guys learn and the mindset that hopefully you're latching onto, there is nothing in this life you can't accomplish. And I feel so blessed to have done this with you, my dear. Hold on.
Likewise.
For all these years, but I also feel really blessed. Here you go. I feel really blessed and honored to, oh, that's cool. I feel really blessed and honored to be as part of it's thousands and thousands of agents' lives over the last couple decades.
Me too.
And even in some cases playing a large role, some cases playing a small role, but it is truly an honor to be, doing what we've done. And our passions that have come as a result of you and I getting really, really good at this, perhaps the best in the industry, have been, beyond what I could possibly imagine too. So we are living the life of doing what we didn't want to do, and we didn't want to do it at the highest level. We
Indeed.
truly are. So guys, listen. Yes, thank you for listening to Julie and I today. This is not our normal podcast. Julie just sent me a message in chat that we need to go get Zoe from school.
Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, they throw into a holding pin called aftercare, and they charge us how much? They charge $15 a minute or something.
$5 every 15, but still, who wants to do that?
So if you're
Yuck.
late at Zoe's school, they put her in kid jail, and then we have to pay for her to be in kid jail, which is pretty hilarious.
Yep.
So we're gonna go. All right, guys, thank you for listening to us today. And this is not our normal podcast. If you're looking for real estate coaching and training, obviously you want to listen to our normal podcast. Many of you are going to be motivated to take the next level. Join Premier Coaching. Do not delay. We are 100% looking forward to you being walking up the mountain with us. And guess what? Julie and I have been up and down Everest thousands of times, and we don't have any frostbite. We've made it.
All digits intact.
And we're ready to take you guys up as well. So have a fantastic day, and thank you for listening.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.